Whenever I meet any investor, any prospective investor, I keep telling them, I keep reminding them that when they talk of India and investments in India, I remind them that there is no one India. This notion of one India is actually a fallacy, because India is a heterogeneous, complex, a very diverse nation. Of course, we are all Indians first, without a question, and then we respect to our sub-identity as a state, and then as a Telugu, etc., etc. But the fact is, when it comes to doing business in India, it depends on which port of entry, which gateway you choose to work or to enter India. For instance, if an Australian firm were to enter India through Hyderabad, their experience would be drastically different compared to entering through another state. I would not want to name names, but most certainly I'll tell you that this would be a very different experience. So the notion of doing business in India will vary from the choice of your destination. So therefore, I've been a very strong proponent that while it's important to have free trade agreements, while it's also important to have regulations and frameworks with respect to foreign direct investment, what is far more important from an individual investor perspective is the real action when it comes to investing actually is in the hands of a state, because land, power, water, fiscal incentives, manpower, and the day-to-day daily operational issues, all of those lie actually within the domain of a state government, because India is a federal republic, we are a union of states. So therefore, my humble appeal to the Australian government through you, and Australian investor community through you again, is that you need to engage bilaterally, directly with the states. While it's important to be engaged at New Delhi's level, but what's equally important is to actually engage directly, bilaterally with various states, because each state has its own strengths. For example, the last state of Telangana has chosen 14 areas as thrust areas for inviting investment. My sister state, Andhra Pradesh, which also falls under you, has a huge coastline, which I do not have, which the state of Telangana does not have. So therefore, our strengths are complementary. We need to figure out who to work with on which front. So that sort of a combination, that sort of a positioning is equally important to understand. More importantly, I'm happy to learn that Telangana has been identified by the Australian government as one of the featured states in this report that you've just shared with us, as an investor-friendly state with which Australian companies can actually do business. When we launched our industrial policy back in 2014, we had kept in mind the apprehensions of international investor community that typically are about investing in a country like India. India is one of the biggest concerns about investing in India. I'm saying this with Jayesh Ranjan right in front of me, is the proverbial bureaucratic red tape, which kind of has bothered, and Jayesh is of course very different. Trust me, I've worked with him long enough. I think if every bureaucrat in India was like Jayesh, it would have been a very different India. I mean, that's a different story. But the proverbial red tape that everybody frets about when it comes to doing business in India is something that we had in mind, and that is something that we wanted to address with this policy. So the industrial policy that we brought in 2014 confers upon the investor a right to self-certify, which no state in India will actually offer you. An investor can actually self-certify themselves and as being in compliance with the law of the land, stating explicitly that they will abide and they will basically follow whatever law is that is laid out for an investor into the country and into the state. We are the first state in the country to have introduced this system, meaning that when a company lands, and an Australian company lands in Hyderabad or in Telangana, you can start the construction of your factory on day one without any clearance from the government. You can self-certify and you can start construction on day one. Even in the most well-governed states in India, typically this process of clearances, this process of approvals takes anywhere between 1 to 3 months. In Telangana, we've made it 0. There is no lag time, you can start on day one. Not only does it save on time and cost, it also guarantees a hassle-free experience of working autonomously and anonymously in this state. Only for regulatory purposes, of course, we ask that the investor file an application online outlining the details of their project. The online system takes care of all the departments that are involved in issuing permissions, so that the investor is not required to physically visit or meet anyone.